Welcome to Virginia Focus. I'm John Clark on the Virginia News Network. The Virginia State Police was established in 1932 and acts as a state police force for the Commonwealth of Virginia. You mainly see their blue and gray cars patrolling the highways to enforce the traffic laws, but they do much more than that. In fact, two areas they cover we're going to talk about today. Those are the Virginia State Police Insurance Fraud Program and their HEAT program, which stands for Help Eliminate Auto Theft. Today, to discuss those two programs, the First Sergeant Keely Hill. She is the HEAT Insurance Fraud Program Coordinator, and Special Agent Peter Lazear from the HEAT program, both with the Virginia State Police. Agent Lazear, what is HEAT?
HEAT is the Virginia State Police's Help Eliminate Auto Theft program, and it was created back in 1992 because Virginia had over 22,000 vehicles stolen that year, and our legislative body, the General Assembly, decided that something needed to be done. So they actually created what's called the HEAT Fund, or the Help Eliminate Auto Theft Fund, and it was actually originally a partnership between the Department of State Police and the Department of Motor Vehicles, and over the years it's been turned over to the Superintendent of State Police. So I'm one of the agents that administers the program, and it's actually funded through a small portion of auto insurance. So it's not actually the funding for the state police. So it comes from a different source, and we have a little bit of oversight through an advisory committee who helps develop and review everything that we do. So we do have a body that we report to. And our program is based out of State Police Headquarters here in Richmond, Virginia. And we have several sworn and administrative personnel, and like me and First Sergeant Hill, who are assigned to this program full-time.
Now, is it strictly for Virginia State Police, or do you have local agencies that you work with as well in it?
A huge part of our initiative, by code actually, is to support training and equipment for both our state police agents as well as local police. So we provide things like training grants so that local auto theft investigators can go receive auto theft training at no cost to them. And we also have 7 auto theft agents that are specialized, that are spread out across the state, that are state police agents. And so we support them through training and equipment as well.
And you said it's been going on for a number of years, since 1992. Talk about the effectiveness of it. Are you seeing the auto thefts lower as a result?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We've had a 67% decrease in auto theft since the inception of the program. So crime prevention is difficult to articulate sometimes. You know, it's like an officer standing on a street corner. Do you know if he's effective by standing there? What crimes did he prevent? So really what we look at is the number of auto thefts. So while we still have as many as 10,000 auto thefts a year, we still see a significant decrease, especially since you think about how many vehicles are produced and are on the road today. So auto theft is definitely still a problem, but we like to think that we're making a difference.
Yeah. How does it work, too, if you in the prevention part of it? Is there a presence that the potential auto thieves know you guys are there, so they maybe hesitate to steal that particular car?
We like to think so. You know, we try to be active on the popular channels of social media. We have a website at heatreward.com. We operate a YouTube and Facebook and Twitter account. We do a lot of paid advertising, so we come up with slogans, catchy campaigns. One of the slogans we use is "Take your keys" or "Take your chances," just to remind the public of some of the common facts of protecting your vehicle against auto theft. So we try to be in the public's eye through ads through Pandora, Spotify, also billboards. We've recently started a campaign where we're showing a brief commercial at the gas pumps. I don't know if you're familiar with the gas station. Yeah. Of course, we operate our websites, and we try to stay engaged through that. We do offer a service called VIN etching. So, of course, you may be aware every vehicle has a vehicle identification number. Mm-hmm. And we offer a free service where we host an event somewhere around the Commonwealth, and people can bring their vehicles, and for free we will etch that number into the corner of the glass on all major portions of the vehicle. So you think about your front windows, side windows, even your moonroof. And what that does is it kind of marries that glass to the car so that if a thief approaches that car with the intention of reselling it or parting it out, in theory, those parts would not be accepted by a shop because they are stamped with a VIN. And also, if they wanted to, say, replace the VIN on the vehicle and create what's called a clone vehicle, where they want to same car where they replace the VIN, they would also have to replace the glass, and that's cost prohibitive for the. We're one of the, if not the only agency in Virginia that offers that as a free service, and we host events usually in conjunction with local police, and we do it through the warmer months because the process doesn't work in the cold. So we actually list the events at heatreward.com. There's an events tab where you can click that and see where we're partnering with locals and hosting those. That'll be ramping back up again in the spring since the weather's getting warmer now.
Now, do the car thieves actually have the VIN number sort of a little metal plate at the corner of the glass and something? Do they lift that off first? So then if you etch it onto the glass, they don't know about it. They can do that, but you still have a VIN. Is that the theory of it?
Right. Traditionally, yeah, it's a metal plate in the front lower corner of the windshield near the driver's pillar. And some manufacturers now actually use stickers. And there's a lot of technology behind it. It's not just something you can print at home. There's 3D technology and microprinting, but thieves will remove the windshield, and then they'll remove that VIN, and they'll replace it with a plate that they've made themselves or a sticker they've made themselves. And some thieves are really good, and there's a black market certainly for these types of things. But say if they steal a vehicle and they want to resell it and get a lot of money, then they'll often take the VIN off of an old car or a similar car in worse condition and try to change the identity of the car. A lot of thieves aren't aware of things like say the decals in the door of the car. Say when you open your door right there on the B pillar, there's often a decal that's put on by the Department of Transportation or by the manufacturer. VINs are actually all over the vehicle in hidden places as well that only law enforcement should know about. So it's very difficult to completely obliterate every VIN on a vehicle. But the etching that we offer is an immediately visible sign. You know, it's discreet enough that it doesn't change the appearance of your car, but it's there on the glass right where a thief would enter. So they see that, and hopefully it deters them.
You mentioned a couple minutes ago about you monitor social media. Did they actually post, hey, we're planning to steal a car or something that like a code word or something on social media that causes you to maybe ping them and go, this is somebody we need to watch?
We don't see that directly. I would love to see some dumb crook news with something like that. Yeah. But in reality, what we see is a lot of, a lot of information is passed along to us from Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, where people are where people are offering up vehicles that are clearly stolen. You know, they'll offer up a vehicle or a motorcycle that has no title, that they don't have a key to, and there's some indicators there. And so part of what the HEAT program does is offers up to a $25,000 cash reward for tips that lead to an arrest. Okay. Those can be submitted online at heatreward.com, or we have an 800 number, 1-800-947-HEAT. And what we will do is we will actually take that information and assign it to an investigator and look into it. And if that information leads to an arrest, then based on the value of the information and the risk to the individual providing it, we would pay up to $25,000 cash. So each year we have plenty of tips that come in like these types of things where vehicles are listed for sale. We send an agent out, we look into it, and oftentimes within a short period of time we're delivering cash to that informant. So anybody can do that. Anybody can provide tips for stolen vehicles in Virginia.
What are the motivations for someone to steal a vehicle? I mean, I would be afraid of getting caught, but obviously some of those guys aren't. But what are those motivations? Yeah,
the number one thing we see is money, and we're talking about street money. So they'll steal a car and they'll go sell it to somebody for $500, and not a lot of money. And then that person will resell it and resell it and resell it. And sometimes it becomes what's called a street rental. That's kind of slang for someone that rents out their vehicle to other criminals, and it's all under the table. It's all off the books. Occasionally we do see cars are just needed for transportation, so they're taken from point A to point B, and they just need a ride. We have a problem now in the urban areas where children are stealing cars to get to school, or children are stealing cars to get to the store. Sometimes we do see insurance fraud where they're either stealing the vehicle themselves or paying someone to steal it for them and then making the claim with the insurance company to claim the money. Of course, we have agents that are dedicated to investigating that.
Right.
And then one of the major issues we have is that vehicles are often stolen to be used to commit other crimes. So it's often difficult to commit a robbery, rape, arson, homicide, that type of major crime without a vehicle. And so we try to stress to local sheriffs and chiefs that auto theft investigations are important because they are sometimes the gateway to the bigger crimes. So if you can stop the auto theft, you can sometimes stop those major crimes.
You hear things too. Chop shops is a term you hear, and switching plates. Those things really go on?
They do. Yeah. They do. Yeah, that's we're seeing them very well organized. Right now, we're seeing a trend on the sport motorcycle side where they'll take a sport bike and it's more valuable in pieces than it is as a whole. And thieves are not dumb. They know that newer cars have great technology and expensive parts. You know, think about the new F-150s, got the all-aluminum body. It's very expensive to create that and repair it. So, hey, as parts, it's a lot more valuable. So that's why we have 7 dedicated auto theft special agents, because they investigate these major cases that involve things like chop shops. And that kind of brings me back to our tip that if you have information about a chop shop that could lead to a lot of arrests, that could lead to a lot of recovered vehicles, that's the kind of thing that we would pay closer to $25,000 for, because the information is so valuable. So unfortunately, yes, they do still exist, and the ones I've seen, they do sort of look like Hollywood. It's pulled into an unmarked shop, and within minutes, the entire car is disassembled into pieces, and parts are sold on eBay or they're just sold in the underground criminal network.
What are some things to look for places like that?
You want to look for businesses that have an unusual inventory, parts that are sold for cheap, a stack up of cars that aren't moving. A lot of times it's an element of a legitimate business. So you'll have a body shop, but in the back they have, say, 6 Audis in various states of disrepair. And I'm just throwing that out there as an example, but it's kind of a culmination of the clues. I think about burglary tools. It's not a problem to ride around with a hammer in your car, but if you have a hammer and a glass breaking tool and a flashlight, it starts to look like you might be a burglar.
Right.
You kind of have to put it all together.
Yeah. Are there certain types of cars that obviously the high-end cars are more popular, or are there some that would be surprising to us to say, wow, they like those too?
Well, the number one stolen car is the one with the keys in it.
Yes, yeah.
So we every year the National Insurance Crime Bureau reports the most stolen vehicles, and typically it aligns with the most manufactured vehicles. So you see a lot of Honda Civics, Honda Accords, F-150s, and it's a little bit skewed because there are so many made. So when they're making 30,000, 40,000 Toyota Camrys every month, then it makes sense that those would be more stolen because they're more prevalent. You'd like to think it's the Ferraris or Lamborghinis, but the reality is they just aren't very common, and people that own them tend to protect them. So what we're seeing is more of a problem with your average, ordinary, everyday car, SUV, is left unlocked or worse with the keys in it. And so we kind of try to teach 3 tips to prevention. So the first one is common sense. That's where you're always locking your vehicle, taking your valuables out, parking in a well-lit area, and just being aware of your surroundings. The second tip we offer is use some kind of deterrent where you come to one of our free VIN etching events or you install an alarm. And then the third is the highest level of technology where you're putting in an immobilizer, a GPS tracking system, OnStar, or something along those lines. So it seems kind of strange, but we do preach common sense quite a bit. Sure. The majority of our vehicles are taken because the keys are left inside.
Do they try to sell these to legitimate car dealers, and do those car dealers sometimes accept them unknowingly, or what happens in those cases?
Yes, that is true, and unfortunately that's often the case. So dealers are fantastic about doing their research and checking the background of the vehicles, but if thieves are good and they've managed to clone a vehicle and put a false VIN on it and the dealers don't look close enough, it could get through. One of the things that we've done is partnered with the Virginia Automobile Dealers Association and try to bring some more awareness to this. And really we're stressing that they need to start by checking the paperwork. Get a good Carfax report or some other type of auto check history report on the vehicle. Make sure it adds up, and make sure that the person that's in front of you is also presenting valid credentials. So we see a lot of fictitious identification. So the person sitting in front of the dealer is not actually who they say they are. So we stress controlling the keys, of course, and then so that there aren't any extra copies made or that they aren't pocketed by the person in the dealership. But really, the problem of someone selling a vehicle to a dealer is not as big as the problem of someone stealing from a dealership.
Today we have been talking with Special Agent Peter Lazear. He is with the Virginia State Police, and we've been talking about their HEAT program, which is Help Eliminate Auto Theft. We also have Sergeant Keely Hill with us today, and she's going to talk with us some about stamp out fraud. Sergeant Hill, Agent Lazear mentioned insurance fraud in his talk. How does that dovetail into what you're doing with stamp out fraud?
Well, stamp out fraud is another program that the Virginia State Police oversees that was established in 1999. Vehicle insurance fraud is the most common type of insurance fraud in Virginia. It's basically attempting to make money through false claims of car accidents or accident-related injuries, where people often take their personal vehicles, or they may be the cause of maybe hitting a bumper of another vehicle or hitting a post, and then claiming that they were in an accident later and trying to claim the insurance money for that. So that's the most common type of insurance fraud that we have in Virginia. Our program really works to basically, we do this very similar as the HEAT program. We provide training to law enforcement and teaching citizens on how to identify and report insurance fraud, because a lot of people don't quite have an understanding of what insurance fraud entails. So we do have a definition and facts on our website. Insurance fraud is any act of making money or attempting to make money from insurance transactions through cheating, lying, deceiving, or stealing. And people think, well, how does that affect me? And a lot of times they don't realize that with fraudulent insurance claims in Virginia, they exceed $20 million each year, and millions more in fraudulent claims are attempted. Insurance fraud is estimated to add as much as $1,000 to the cost of goods and services for people. So that's just the biggest thing for us, is we want to make sure we make that aware. We have social media, we have websites, we also have a tip line as well with the opportunity to get up to $25,000. So we just basically want to bring awareness to that as well. October is Insurance Fraud Awareness Month. We thought it was fitting to talk about this. $20 million each year. Boy, that is to say significant is an understatement on that, isn't it? It is. It absolutely is. And three common categories in insurance fraud is basically property fraud, casualty fraud, and workers' compensation fraud. We do have tip lines. It's just the biggest thing, I would say the difficult component that we have with the program is just bringing awareness and getting people to understand what insurance fraud actually is. Yeah. You mentioned, I would have never thought of this, but I guess I don't think like, this is good, I don't think like a criminal. But I didn't realize people actually will run into something and damage their car on purpose just so they can submit insurance money and get money. We have had that, yes, it does happen. It's more common than not. If they do that, they risk injury on that, and then how do you investigate that and realize, something's up, something's not right? What are some of the signs that let you know about that? Well, we do have investigators out in the field that actually do that. A lot of the insurance companies will vet some of those claims coming in themselves, and they also verify the timing of the circumstances. There's things we can do in our investigative measures to where, we can look at the crash, we can examine the damage to the vehicle. It doesn't coincide with what they said happened. We check with local law enforcement and troopers to see if a crash report was done. Oftentimes those are not done. So just in comparing all the information that we gather, we usually can come to that conclusion. But a lot of the insurance companies do a great job on vetting that as a priority first and foremost before it gets to us. Are there cases where someone will actually hit another vehicle, that maybe down the highway or even a parked vehicle? Yes, all those are on the table. That happens on a regular basis, yes. So if someone hits someone, and what about if the person either hit or the person hitting doesn't even have any insurance, and can that be considered insurance fraud by not having the insurance? How does some of those situations work? I know each situation is different. Yes, each situation is different. There is penalty for not having insurance, and that's something that a lot of the local insurance companies will oversee and handle. But it's unfortunate, but we do deal with those circumstances as well. But there is penalty for not having an insured vehicle on the highways. Yeah, I would think, too, if you get hit and you try to file a claim without insurance and they don't have the insurance, I guess you don't get any reimbursement, or your damage is taken care of. Is that the case? Well, unfortunately, what ends up happening first and foremost is your own insurance company will typically handle any cost to the damages and stuff, and then usually you have further court cases that happen where the insurance companies are pursuing whatever they can from the person that's at fault. So it can be a long-term deal when it comes to the court system.
Yeah, and not to mention injury. How does that affect? I know with personal injury, legal situations and all, if you get really injured in one of those accidents, you have a whole different problem. Whether you're the perpetrator or the victim, really, that injury adds a whole new element to it, I would think.
You're absolutely right. It does. It does that.
In both cases, with stamp out fraud and then your HEAT program, I guess it's a good thing that this is foreign to most people, which means there are some honest people out there. But you don't think about that. But these people that are doing this, they work hard to figure this stuff out, don't they? Or is it that hard for them?
They actually do. I hate to say it, but a lot of aspects they are very smart in their planning and process and doing this in both categories. Yeah.
What should you do if you suspect it? If someone has hit you, and you think something's strange? I mean, do you contact the insurance company? Do you contact the Virginia State Police? What should you do in that situation?
Well, typically, first and foremost, if something like that happens, you contact your insurance company, make them aware of what's going on, and then absolutely call law enforcement to at least start to establish a record or see if there's a report that can be done, and just basically start that paper trail so an investigation can be conducted.
We've been talking about vehicle insurance fraud, but does stamp out fraud also deal with other types of insurance fraud, whether it's property or like a business or a home or something like that too?
Absolutely. Our commercial we're very similar to HEAT. We have commercials out there. We're portraying new ones as we speak, but we have something similar where you're saying that you're calling in for a 2020 Lexus and you have basically a 1999 Lexus. That's it, and you're claiming money or damage at the value of a 2020 Lexus. That's definitely insurance fraud. If you're claiming that you have a TV that's an older model TV that's probably 10 years old and you're trying to claim that it's a brand new TV that you bought at Walmart this weekend, and you're trying to claim the same value for it, that's insurance fraud. So just little things like that, people don't realize the concept of what insurance fraud entails.
What about, I've heard of situations too where someone's house may be robbed. A burglar hits their house. And then the person may, some things were stolen, but then the person starts, expanding that a little bit to things that weren't stolen that they didn't even have. Does that happen a lot? I've heard of those situations, but do you face that a lot?
We do. We do get those calls. We have great investigators in the field that usually we start out with a tip where we usually have the tip line come in and then we'll assign those cases out to the field. And you're right. We absolutely do have that. I just recently was reading on people that get insurance claim on jewelry. And they will claim and they'll take pictures and they'll provide the documentation to the insurance company to get claims for the jewelry and claim that it's been lost or damaged or stolen. And then recently I just had one where it was 3 years prior they attempted that, received money for it, and then tried to do it again. And thankfully the insurance company had the documentation to verify that, hey, this is the same jewelry that you claimed earlier that was lost. So it does happen. It does. And people spend a lot of time with the thought process to try to do this stuff.
Yeah, I can see that happening in a disaster, too, where someone's home is destroyed by fire or a hurricane or something like that. And they come up with things, and all of a sudden, maybe they were an honest person, but they think, they'll never know. I guess you get that, too. They'll never know.
And you do. You get that a lot. But you have to, remind yourself every day and take a second guess and say, is this what I'm going to be doing? Is this right? Is this illegal? And again, that comes to defining what insurance fraud is, and that's what we're trying to do. We're really trying to get awareness out to the public and the community to basically first let them have an understanding and define what it is first so they know that these little thought processes that are happening are actually, this is insurance fraud, and so they'll second guess what they're doing.
Do some of the insurance companies actually, the people actually get the money and then all of a sudden they have some theft charges on there too? Does that slip through the cracks at times?
It can slip through the cracks. We try to vet everything that we can, but they do a great job. Initially, the insurance companies do a great job on their own investigations, but oftentimes they can come to the law enforcement realms where we do file charges.
Yeah. Agent Lazear, how does this tie in with what you do with HEAT? Is that something that you guys check out in these situations? Is that one of the first things you say is let's check what's going on with the insurance?
Absolutely, yeah. There's tremendous channels in Virginia for insurance companies and law enforcement to share information. So Fortunately for us, our insurance fraud agents and our auto theft agents typically work in the same office. So they're working side by side and sometimes jointly on these cases that involve vehicles to determine whether it's a theft or a fraud case or if there's no crime at all.
Yeah. What about as far as convictions in both cases with both of you? How are you doing in terms of that and making the case and then the court actually punishing these people? What about in the case of HEAT?
Well, that is, I would say that the courts, compared to some of the things that the courts see, some of the major crimes I talked about, the robbery, rape, arson, homicide, I don't think auto theft is given quite the level of punishment across the Commonwealth that those crimes are. It's very jurisdiction dependent. And so we do see an issue where juveniles especially are put in some kind of treatment plan. Or they're put into a program to talk where they really talk about how the crime makes them feel, and then they're put back on the street, and of course they're repeat offenders. So we have some jurisdictions that have 200 or 300 juveniles that start out stealing cars, and they progress to narcotics and then to major crimes. And so we try to work hand in hand with local law enforcement to try and stop it at the juvenile level.
So it can be a gateway into very bad things. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that you're making progress on this. Are you finding that it's mostly individuals, or do you have what are known, I guess, as car theft rings that are huge operations?
I would say it's split pretty evenly. We have a large car theft ring that is been attacking the weaknesses and kind of exploiting those in dealerships and in rental companies. So they will rent a car or buy a car using fictitious information or stolen identity. And then that car, if it's high-end, it will almost immediately be put in a shipping container and slip through the port and be sent to another country. In some cases, these thefts of these high-end vehicles, that money has been tied directly to terrorism. So it's definitely a problem. We see the gamut of an individual trying to just claim a little extra on their insurance claim for their vehicle damage, all the way up to, say, a Cadillac Escalade ending up on the coast of West Africa. And
on your end, Sergeant Hill, what about convictions? Are people being held accountable for this and convicted of these crimes as far as insurance fraud?
They are, and again, one of the biggest difficulties is finding those prosecutors that are comfortable with prosecuting insurance fraud. So that was something I wanted to mention too. The insurance fraud program supports special prosecutor positions. So currently there are 4 special prosecutors assigned to the insurance fraud program, and they're responsible for prosecuting insurance fraud cases. So that's very specific to that. It says these special prosecutors provide support to insurance fraud special agents and serve as a reference tool for anyone else working an insurance fraud case in Virginia. So they're really putting a lot of focus on that, and they're prioritizing special prosecutors so that we can bring more awareness and convictions to this problem that we have.
Tell the audience again what they need to do if they suspect insurance fraud.
Very similar to the HEAT. We have a website that we definitely want to go at stampoutfraud.com. We also have a phone number that they can contact. It's 1-877-62-FRAUD, and they can submit a confidential tip. You have the same options. Tips can lead to arrest, or eligible rewards can be up to $25,000. So the same opportunity with this as the HEAT program.
And Special Agent Lazear, what about on your end, the HEAT program? How should people reach out if they suspect problems with auto theft?
I just want to say, first off, always contact your local law enforcement and your insurance company. Beyond that, if you want more information or theft prevention tips, you can find us at heatreward.com. There you can submit a tip anonymously, earn up to $25,000.
Well, thank you both so much for certainly shedding a lot of light on this. I don't think people realize how destructive this is in the long run. And thank you for what you do, and good luck to you, and keep up the good work. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do.
Interesting conversation today concerning auto vehicle theft and also insurance fraud. I think we probably all learned a lot about that today. If you want to find out about the HEAT program and help stamp out auto theft, you can visit heatreward.com. If you suspect insurance fraud in any case, you can visit stampoutfraud.com. And today, our guests have been Sergeant Keely Hill with the Virginia State Police. She is the HEAT Insurance Fraud Program Coordinator. And also we've been talking with Special Agent Peter Lazear. He is with the HEAT program for Virginia State Police. If you have questions or comments about today's show, or if you have an idea for a topic you'd like to see us cover, email me, John Clark at iHeartMedia.com. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next week on Virginia Focus.